when people are trying to figure out, okay, well, you guys are talking about planning, keep in mind that we're talking about looking at different iterations of the same thing over and over and over again to the point where we can anticipate, we can see things before they happen. We can see pretty far down the road. When you're just starting out, that first iteration is the thing that you're focusing on, and you want to document as much of that as possible. So when you see a different version of it, then that's when you can start to say, okay, well, I know what this looked like the last time. What's similar and what's different? And that's where you really start building out your plan. And
Right.
that's when you start to be able to build out your experience of how to navigate the process and the troubled waters, if you will, because it's not an if, it's a when. And when it does happen, you want to have something to be able to fall back on and say, you know what, I may not have been here before, but I've been in a place that was similar enough where I can reference some of that in order to be able to deal with the things that I'm looking at now.
Yeah.
So I would say planning removes feeling like you have to act in the moment and
Mhm.
having a reactionary solutions that could turn around and cost you because you didn't get a chance to think through the consequences. I think when things break, if you've done planning properly, you have the bandwidth to be able to address them.
Yeah.
And preparation buys you time. It
Right.
buys you choice. It
Right.
buys you decisions
Yeah. Yeah.
that you will turn around and be happy that you had the time to be able to think through, as opposed to saying, well, I'll deal with that when it comes up. I think we joked about this before, saying I'll cross that bridge when it gets here.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, you better hope that bridge is sturdy.
Yeah, yeah. And you talked about experience. I mean, we of course have the advantage of experience that we can whenever we're confronted with a situation based on the experience, we can, they say hindsight is 20/20. We can go back and okay, I saw this before.
Mhm.
I know what I did when I saw it. I know what the outcome was. If I didn't like the outcome, I can try something different. But just because you don't have the experience doesn't mean that that's where planning comes in. Now, if you don't have the experience, and even if you have the experience, planning helps you make even better decisions. But if you don't have the experience, planning gives you the equivalent as much as you can of experience. And that, again, you're looking at what could happen.
Mhm.
How would I react if this does happen? And, maybe give myself a plan B as well. And now when it does,
Ideally.
you've got a way of dealing with something. It's not as good as experience, but it's as close as you're gonna come to it.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. We were talking about this before we started, and I was telling you about the event that was coming up, and the guy was like talking about bringing me in as a speaker, and what I looked at is I said, okay, well, what slot do you have? And he already had some people, and I looked at the list, and they were talking about frameworks and systems and all the things that they were going to do. And I was going to be on the third day. And my thing is, I've been through so many of these summits and been to so many events that I know what the third day looks like.
Yeah, yeah.
So when you're thinking about planning, this is just another version of what I'm talking about and what we're talking about.
Right.
I switched from saying, okay, well, I'm not going to teach you frameworks. I'm not going to teach you systems. I'm going to teach you what happens when life intervenes in the systems and the frameworks that they just finished teaching you,
Yeah, yeah,
and built a framework around that to be able to say, when things start to drift, this is what you do.
yeah,
So this is how you keep things from going off the rails. This is how you start to plan for things that may go off the rails,
yeah.
and start to figure things out. So very much what we're saying is understand the process. And the more
Mm,
you look at it, even if you don't have the experience, what you do have is the experience of what you think will happen. You have the ability to be able to ask questions of people
right.
that have experienced versions of it and plan around that.
Mhm.
Now we've got AI. AI is pulling history. So where we're able to access our personal experience, it's accessing the personal experience that we put out there and spoke to
Right, right.
and turned around and repackage it to turn around and give that to the person. So there are
Yeah,
a lot of places where you can get that information if you know how to ask the right questions. And that's why I think this conversation is really important, to be able to highlight why planning matters. Here's some of the things that you want to be able to look at. I love that you talked about bite size. I am big for checkpoints and milestones.
mhm,
If you
mhm.
try to just focus on what the end result's going to look like, it's so easy to miss the things that can happen in between. And I think that's one of the really important parts. So I'm only circling back because I want to make sure people value the insights and the information that you just shared, because everything that you said is what goes into planning, whether
Yep.
you're experienced or not.
Right, 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 right. Yep.